Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's edition of NASCAR 07 on the channel, and today we are Busch Series racing for the first time on this game on the channel tonight, and we are racing as Jimmie Johnson for this NASCAR Busch Series season. 30 races, custom schedule edition, just as we are doing in the Cup and the Truck Series on this game. And you guys got to vote, and you voted for me to race a 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. So now it's time to try to win an Xfinity Series title with Jimmie Johnson, something he was unable to do throughout his illustrious NASCAR career. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more daily NASCAR content as well. We have live race commentary streams on the race weekends for the real races that go on, and as well as on the video game side during the week. Throwback Thursdays. Every Thursday we watch an old NASCAR race at that respected track that, of course, they are racing at this weekend. They are racing at Circuit of the Americas. So with that being the case, we will be watching an old race at a NASCAR track that is not currently on the schedule, and you can vote for that in the community tab. And yeah, let's get into this thing. Jimmie Johnson is who we're going to be racing as for this season. This is going to be very interesting, to say the least. We are obviously in Hendrick Motorsports equipment, 48 car, Lowe's paint scheme, similar to what you would see out of Jimmie Johnson really at this time period of NASCAR. And I don't know what to do here because we are not going to be practicing or qualifying. We'll be starting right at the tail end of the field for this race. We're going to try to win this thing the hard way for the Hershey Kissables 300. Billy Kramer and others, welcome into the stream. And yeah, let's get this stream underway. Got to get the chat up real quick on my end, and then we will get to racing. There we go. Billy Kramer, welcome in. And let's get this underway. 300 miles, 120 laps for today's Busch Series race. And I just realized I have to change the controls. Hang on. Give me a second. Gotta go configuration number 2. Should be good to go now. I forgot I had to start a new profile. I had to start a new profile and I completely forgot to. So we need to get around a couple cars here off the start, because if it's going to be anything like the NASCAR Cup Series race that we had on this game, it is going to be very, very difficult to pass. Got to get going from the start, but also we don't know what the Busch Series cars are going to handle like in this game. This is the first time on the channel trying to race with the Busch Series cars. Really got to hope for the best. And Johnson obviously not off to a great start. He did get by the 163. But now that 163 car kind of pulled away from him getting into turns 1 and 2. And this is where the problem is going to arise for Jimmie Johnson in the early go to this race. And that's where no practice or qualifying is really going to hurt this 48 team. 1 lap in the books. It looks like Kurt Busch will lead the opening lap of the season for the Busch Series. And 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Jimmie Johnson at the tail end of the field here. Nice to get this car kind of felt out, but definitely not a great start. We do have 2 teammates all season long in the Busch Series. We'll have Brian Vickers in the 57 and Kyle Busch in the 5. Coincidentally, actually, was just racing as Kyle Busch on the NASCAR 06 custom schedule season that you guys voted for me to race as. So we'll have the 57 and Vickers as a teammate again, and then we'll kind of be racing as Busch here and there throughout the course of every race. A little bit of smoke off of turn 4. Might have been some cars that had made contact. Johnson is closing in a ton into the tri-oval, all the way down to the apron as he's making a bunch of passes. I don't care. There's no out of bounds in this game, so we're going to take advantage of it. And this is going to get Jimmie Johnson a little extra drafting help as he goes into turns 1 and 2. And to lift the center of the corner to keep it off the 192 car who was in front of him on the bottom lane. If you watched our content last week, we ran the Daytona 500 with Mark Martin, and we actually ended up winning the race. The dual race earlier that day, we ended up finishing in 2nd. So I've had some good runs at Daytona, but starting from the rear of the field here in this 43 car field is going to be very interesting to see if we can make our way through. But obviously a kind of a lucky start A lot of cars making contact, stacking up off turn 4 moments ago. Paul Menard is going to lead lap 3 after Kurt Busch led the first 2 laps of the race today. And Jimmy Johnson from last place starting position is already going to be up to 28th place. Going into turns 1 and 2. Lifts going into turn 1 as he gets blocked heavily by the 192. It's going to build up quite a bit of a gap. But Johnson knows he's going to have to get going here early and often. Kenneth Clark, Derek Booth, Ashton G, Joshua Rumsey also welcome into the stream, everybody. Earl Arnold Jr., welcome. I just realized I didn't have my rear view mirror up. I was so used to NASCAR 22 from last night at Talladega that I didn't even notice it was off. Until I went to actually look up. I was like, well, Casey Mears is awfully close to me. I wouldn't realize how close he was if I had the rear view mirror on. So, it looks like it's kind of a 3-car group drafting away from the cars at the rear of the field. It's this fantasy driver in the 192 of Montana. And then Jimmy Johnson and Casey Mears. Paul Menard, though, still leading this race. In the number 11. Running in the 15-car full-time of the Cup Series season on our NASCAR 07 gameplay as well. And it does seem like the 192 and the 48 are kind of closing in on the back of the field right now, which is a good start for being 5 laps in. Long ways to go, even though these Busch Series races much shorter than the Cup side. Still a pretty long race. Probably going to have anywhere between 2 to 3 pit stops today. I'd probably lean towards 3. Considering in the Cup Series, it seemed like we were able to go about, I'd say right around, what was it, like 36 laps on fuel? A lot of bump drafting on the back straightaway. Johnson already feeling comfortable. I will say this car feels a lot of the same of what the Cup Series car felt like, which is what I was hoping for, because setup was practically the same. I was honestly scared to do anything otherwise. I did get minimal practice before the Cup race, and then obviously the 60-lap dual race leading up to the 500, so that was a lot of practice leading into that one. A lot of contact on the front stretch. Johnson got into the back of the 192, almost turned him. He wasn't even trying to bump draft him there. He lifted as soon as he made contact with him. The 192 goes backwards. Jimmy Johnson not able to keep up with the cars in front of him. And we've got Ryan Newman in the lead now. And that's something I remember from the PSP version of this game. There's cars in multiple numbers, just like we saw in NASCAR 06. There were multiple drivers that drove, I don't think it was the 9 car throughout the year in that game. But there were multiple drivers in a couple different cars. I know the 33 was one of them. In this game, they both race. It's weird. So you'll see 2 39 cars all season, Ryan Newman and Kurt Busch. We're going to transfer to Brian Vickers for the first time this season. And you can see he is in the 6th place position right now. So Vickers up inside the top 10. And Kyle Busch up to 4th place. So a couple of the Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolets up towards the front of the field as we alternate through the different drivers in this Busch Series field for the first time. I believe it is Mark Martin who leads this race. So Martin led his first lap, I believe, that last time by at the start-finish line. Vickers not really able to keep up with Martin Church Jr. in the 8. He's trying. Kurt Busch fell way back after leading a couple laps ago. He's in 7th, right behind Vickers. And Vickers is starting to lose the cars up in front of him. Busch on the outside. It turns 3 and 4. And we will move to Kyle Busch in that 5 car right now. Paul Menard on his inside going into turns 1 and 2. Look at how tightly Menard was on Busch. Great job by Busch hanging on to his race car. Got crowded a ton right there. Truex going to get by. Same with Menard. Menard was getting a huge draft off the car in front of him. Busch staying on the outside. He's going to have to drop to the bottom behind Martin Truex Jr. Communist Legos, welcome into the stream. Yeah, honestly, I forgot Jimmy Johnson was in this game too. You guys voted for him. I'm like, Jimmy Johnson, I gotta see this. No, honestly, when I was going through the driver lineup online, that's when I first realized he was in this game. I forgot about it, honestly. I played this game so much growing up, and I forgot Jimmy Johnson was in the Busch series. And speaking of Busch, Kyle Busch going backwards. So both him and Brian Vickers losing the top 4 cars. Vickers will make his way up to 5th. Busch is going to get freight trained now by yet another car as Matt Kenseth gets underneath him. And he is definitely going backwards right now. Ryan Newman, rather that is Kurt Busch who gets by. His older brother. And we will go back to Jimmy Johnson right now as the leaders are starting to fall behind just a little bit. Johnson in 30th. Kenny Wallace in the 22 is the next car in front of him, but Johnson not quite close enough to be able to get a draft off of him. Boy. Slight contact with Casey Mears. 42, luckily Johnson holds on. But not a great start. I mean, it was great in the sense we got the 29th after like 5 laps, and Johnson has like stalled out ever since he got there. He really only got there because of a lucky break with a couple cars getting together in the middle of the pack off turn 4, kind of separating the tail end of this field apart from the rest of them. There's an Old Spice car behind us. I don't know if that's Tony Stewart or if it's the 133 car. It kind of looks like it is Tony Stewart. Tough to tell for sure. I think that's a Kevin Harvick Incorporated car, if I'm not mistaken. If it is Stewart, obviously. Yeah, that's not going to help either. A wall scrape for Johnson. Closing in big time on Casey Mears, and he's going to bump draft him immediately. And he's decided to stay to the outside because he felt that if he was going to stay in line behind Mears, he may have potentially turned him going into turn 3. It's going to push Casey out ahead as he had the bottom lane through 3 and 4. Massive run in the tri-oval that time for Jimmy Johnson. Pulls out of line, passes Mears for position. Is he close enough, though, to the next Chip Ganassi Racing Dodge of Reed Sorensen? Or is he going to have to let one of these 2 cars behind him get by him again? Because I think he was just a little bit too far out of line when he pulled out of the draft from Mears. And that was exactly the case, and it looks like he's going to have to kind of sit back and wait again. Casey going to work to the inside. An Old Spice car running on the bottom as well. Johnson up on the top. Trying to hold on. Big block by Johnson in the middle of the trial. We'll try to get to the bottom. He didn't want to lose too many more positions. Mark Martin has led for quite a while after getting to the lead. I think he's led about 7 or 8 laps consecutively now. Just a 30-race season as well. This is a season-long points format, just like we're seeing in our Cup Series Custom Schedule season, but this is a bit shorter of a Busch Series season compared to what we're used to nowadays. By a few races, and even at this time, shorter by about 5 races. Oh, trouble! Nearly. Reed Sorensen up into the wall as he tried to block a car that was on his outside. He was not clear. Johnson passes about 4 cars off of turn 4 but it looks as if he's too far behind the cars in front of him to be able to draft there, and still no drafting help for the 48. Man, oh man. Just can't catch a break right now. He's missing all the carnage, but in doing so and gaining positions out of it, he's losing more interval time with the leaders because he doesn't have any drafting help. I believe I will be driving as Todd Bodine in the Truck Series. And that live stream will be tomorrow night. I actually didn't check the community tab yet to see who was leading the poll. That was supposed to end last night, so I guess you guys have had a few extra hours to vote for it, if you haven't voted. I'll check as soon as I can, but I believe Todd Bodine was leading the polls last I saw. And if he is not leading the poll anymore, then that wouldn't be a surprise to me, honestly. Went into turns 1 and 2. That 22 car really squeezed Johnson. Now Johnson's against the wall. Can't get off of it. By the time he did, he almost turned himself. Off of one of the fantasy drivers. And that is Tony Stewart down low. Oh boy, Johnson 3 wide middle. Look out, everybody. Jesus. This is a hornet's nest. And more contact out of the rear view of Jimmy Johnson. That time it was Casey Mears trying to block one of the fantasy cars to the outside. And if it wasn't for Tony Stewart pulling alongside the fantasy driver, I think they were going to pull away from Jimmy Johnson, but they side drafted each other enough. Johnson able to close that gap immensely going into turn 1. He gets one of those positions back. Now he's got a car behind him as he closes on Stewart, so he may be able to hang on into the draft. But these Hendrick cars having a tough time trying to draft behind other cars in the field today, so Hendrick Motorsports not exactly looking perfect in this race so far. Lacking a little bit of speed. I mean, it was the Roush cars that had speed. 4 of the 5 finished, or I should say there is only 4. 4 of them finished in the top 12, and 3 of them in the top 8 in the Daytona 500 on Friday night on the channel. And of course, Mark Martin got the win. So this is technically the second race of our speed week, so it'll be interesting what organization will pop out on top. Well, as of right now, Mark Martin trying to get the Daytona sweep, perhaps. Now, granted, he's not racing in the Truck Series. There's no Cup regulars in the Truck Series in this game, but he is giving himself a good run, though. Speaking of a good run, Johnson has one on the back straightaway. Passes Tony Stewart going into turn 3. Kenny Wallace moving up off the bottom, maybe a little early. See Johnson's car just bobbing and weaving through the bumps in the middle of this bumpy Daytona racetrack. Will be 100 laps to go this time by. And our truck race tomorrow will be 100 laps, 250 miles. So already 50 miles into this one. Caution free so far. We had 4 cautions in the Daytona 500, and we had a green flag run of over 100 laps at one point in that race. Johnson with a run, looking to the outside. Makes a pass on the back straightaway. Doing what he can to try to pick him up and put him down. A lot of those faster cars really getting away from him. Quite a bit off the race lead right now, about 7.7 seconds. Todd Kluver in the 06. On the outside. He was in the Truck Series in the last game. It is kind of cool seeing guys from the Truck Series move up to the Busch, and then from Busch to Cup in these older games as we go year to year to year. And Cup guys moving back down to the Busch. Johnson had a run there on Kluver. Couldn't quite make the pass on him. Oh, the fantasy car started to pull away from him a little bit. Still losing time, it appears, on the leaders. Johnson stuck in the back half of the field still. Gets into the 06 of Kluver just a little bit. That stalled his run out. I don't know that he's going to be able to keep up with the 174. He clears Kluver. He's going to have maybe a tad bit of a push from behind. And Johnson just close enough to stay in the draft of Clayton. Right in the center of the corner. That's where Johnson really starts to lose these guys up ahead of him. It doesn't help he doesn't have anybody behind him right now. 174 car pulled out of line looking to make a pass. And Johnson squeezes down onto that yellow line trying to make his way around the 174. Jeff Burton in the 21 is up in front of him. Johnson can't clear this 174 car. He may get a run again to get back by the 48. It is definitely a struggle here for this 48 car. It's so weird too, because in that Daytona 500 with Mark Martin, we were pretty much in the top 10 the whole race. There was one time where we got trapped in the back half of the field very early in the race. It was after the first caution, because the first caution came out for a 3-car wreck. I believe it was off of turn 4 if I remember correctly, and Mark Martin had already made his stop but he wasn't a lap down yet, and so everybody else who was either on pit road, or I should say no, he didn't make his stop yet. He was on the track, but there were a lot of cars that were on pit road because the pit stops just started. And he ended up falling back to 33rd, but was able to get back to the lead after about 70 laps or so into that green flag run. Then he was pretty much fighting for the win ever since. Never really lost any more track position. Never fell outside the top 5 the rest of the day. But here in this race, it's a little bit different, since Jimmy Johnson just doesn't have that same speed Mark Martin has either today or back in the Daytona 500. Again, Johnson to the inside of the 174, but he didn't have enough of a run to get around him. He was bum drafted him on the back straightaway, so by the time he pulled out of line, Johnson definitely didn't have any help. The problem is he doesn't have anybody behind him that can help him pass these cars in front of him. Unless he's got enough of a draft on the bottom, when he pulls out of line, he's not going to be able to pass these guys. Johnson is maybe going to lose the 174. Yeah, he's definitely going to lose him. We'll take our second and final field pass of the day then when we get back to the start-finish line. Johnson is starting to lose the pack up ahead as Mark Martin continues to lead. We will swap to Kyle Busch in the 5. And Kyle Busch is in the 3rd place position. He's right there with the leaders. Mark Martin and Matt Kenseth running 1-2. Busch has a big run on the back straightaway. Goes for 2nd place underneath Matt Kenseth. Just like with Jimmy Johnson earlier, he didn't have a lot of help behind him. Now Martin is running the bottom. That could help Busch. No Hendrick car is led today, but it looks like Kyle Busch has just cleared Matt Kenseth for the race lead and now sits right behind the 6 car of Mark Martin. So he has split up the Roush Fenway Fords at the front of the field at least. Can he get enough of a run on Martin and try to take this race lead? He's going for it. Bottom of the racetrack. And clear as he takes the lead into turn 3. Up to the outside, trying to block Mark now, and Kyle Busch out in front at the Daytona International Speedway. Kenseth going for second. That's 5 bonus points for Kyle Busch. Matt Kenseth, who hasn't led yet today, trying to get to the lead as well. Kenseth to the outside, and Martin stayed on the bottom with Busch. And Kenseth's going to get to the lead off turn 2. No chance to block that. Kyle may get another run at him, though. Probably not. And we'll swap back to Brian Vickers now in the 57 when we get back to the start-finish line. Martin to the outside of Busch for second into the tri-oval. And Vickers in 6th place right now, and he himself is 4.9 seconds off the race lead and has 0 drafting help around him. Oh yeah, this game is way better than Ignition. Josh Williams suspended. It doesn't surprise me. Somebody asked me if I saw something about the restart zone too. I'm guessing they moved it back. I haven't gotten to see any of it. I usually not able to keep up with NASCAR news while I'm at work during the day, so no, I didn't see anything. Vickers getting steamrolled right now. Elliott Sadler going to get by also. We'll go back to Jimmy Johnson for the rest of the race when we get back to the start-finish line. Vickers has a couple of fantasy drivers and Kurt Busch right on his back bumper. Almost split him 3 wide up the middle there. And Vickers in danger of falling outside the top 10. Johnson's caught back up to the pack ahead of him. Meanwhile, still like to get somebody behind him, though. That's the only problem right now. And I guess he does have Todd Kluver behind him. Kluver has drafted his way back behind the 48. But Johnson quickly losing his cars again. Get a little help from behind to try to keep him in it, but I don't know that it's going to be enough. And it sounds like we have some of the leaders on their way to pit road this time. Johnson going to try to stay out of the pits as long as he can. Both of his teammates coming in, Brian Vickers and Kyle Busch. A few other cars, obviously, a lot more other cars really coming into the pits. Matt Kenseth stays out and retains the lead. Lap 33 at the line. And it's definitely looking like it's going to be a pretty easy 3-stop race today. I don't think anybody's going to be able to make it on 2 stops. I mean, they'd have to go about 40 laps. Johnson going to the outside here intentionally. He's going to let this car get around him so he can have a little bit of drafting help. That fuel indicator is blinking. It's flashing at me. Got the lights on the dash flashing. It's not the check engine light, though, so we're good. Johnson able to catch right back up to this car. And that car's going to stay on 1 more lap, so Johnson will also. So he can guarantee that he's going to have a little extra drafting help. Don't know how much longer he's going to want to really take this, but who knows, maybe we get a caution trapping a lot of cars a lap down. It's not impossible. Johnson will pit this time by, will be the plan. It looks like the car in front of him is potentially going to come into the pits also as Johnson bump drafts him going off into the corner. Both cars got a little sideways. A lot of 2x2 just up ahead of him. Johnson is coming in. Locking the tires up a little bit, but he got in pretty well. Did not speed either. It'll be right side tires only for Jimmy Johnson. Same strategy Mark Martin was pulling off in the Daytona 500. Johnson will do it here in the, I almost said the dual race, the Busch Series race. Why is there crew members? Our pit crew's not Jimmy Johnson colors. Looked like they're working for the number 30 AOL team from a couple years ago. I don't know who they were, but they were not my pit crew. There goes Kyle Busch. And Jimmy Johnson with the right side tire stop should cycle himself pretty far up through the field. But he's going to be quite a ways still behind the race leaders. Those top three specifically. Just have to hope that he maintained enough time. That's the big thing. And Kidu, thanks for tuning in. Johnson still trying to get up to speed into turns 3 and 4. Trying to block on the 39 of Ryan Newman, I believe is the car behind him. Elliott Sadler closing in as well. Busch going to the outside. And it was the 39 of Newman. A little scrape off the wall. And that could cost Busch. Now he is on right side tires only. His car definitely feels a lot looser coming out of the pits. The bad thing is he locked those tires up coming in too, which is not good. Got to pick Sadler behind the cars coming out of the pits down on the bottom, and that's going to allow for Johnson to stay in front of him. Now he's got a teammate to work with of Brian Vickers in the 57 who passes him to the outside on the back straightaway. I don't know if Johnson has the speed to be able to keep up, unfortunately. It looks like there's a slow car in the back straightaway right now. Potentially that has blown an engine. Matt Kenseth has cycled back to the race lead following pit stops. Johnson has gone from about 25th to 7th, taking the right side tires only during these green flag conditions, but he's still quite a ways off the leader. Still 2 more pit stops left the rest of this race, though. Johnson going to the outside. Trying to let the 39 of Ryan Newman underneath him. Just scrape into the wall. Is it going to help anything? Contact now behind, and Newman coming into the pits, actually. Looked like he was coming in. Now Johnson's got absolutely nobody to work with after that contact with Paul Menard. Still in 7th, but he's quite a ways off the lead. Wade Slinsky, thanks for tuning in. What was I, like 13 and a half seconds off the lead when I pitted the first time? We're about 12.9 off the lead. They stacked way up off turn 4 as well. Jimmy Johnson has pulled quite a ways ahead. We'll catch him eventually. Well, the good news is he gained track position. The bad news is doesn't look very fast. Got another car limping around the racetrack down on the apron. Couldn't tell who it was. Was it Newman? I mean, Newman dropped to the inside. I wonder if it might have been Ryan Newman in the 39. He's trying to limp his car back into the pits. Alternate through the different camera angles now for the first time in the Busch Series this season. Santiago Kid, thanks for tuning in. Hasn't been an exactly clean race for Johnson, but at least he's in the top 10 right now. I just don't think the Hendrick cars have as much speed. Because even when I did the couple field swaps already with Brian Vickers and Kyle Busch, they don't feel as fast as what I felt with Mark Martin and the Roush cars during the Daytona 500. And taking the right side tires, again, it helped for track position for Jimmy Johnson. Well, how much is this track position actually going to really mean? Caution, well, that'll mean something. Our first yellow of the race. That definitely, oh my gosh. Who's that, Martin Truex Jr. in the 8? On his driver's side door off of turn 2. All by himself. How did that happen? Like Keselowski at Fontana, what was that, 2009? My gosh, Ryan Newman just whizzed by him to the outside. Luckily, he missed him. Caution's out. Jimmy Johnson's going to pit here. He's going to put on 4 fresh tires, and I'm curious to see if everybody else pits too. They may be within the fuel window to make it on 2 more stops. Maybe not. I don't know. 4 tires of fuel, though. Johnson definitely topping off after a first caution of the day. Not the big one, but Truex up on his side. Not sure how he got up that way, though. And doing the Richmond. Herbie's on the fence. Pulling out his inner Herbie the love bug.
Nobody else decided to come in.
So every car still on the lead lap. Green flag back in the air. 2 cars out of the race with engine failures. I think Truex is still in it, but not sure how he got to where he was. Question now, can Jimmy Johnson win this race on fuel mileage? It's going to be tough for him to stay in the draft, first and foremost. That's going to be the most difficult thing right now for Jimmy Johnson, is trying to stay in this draft. Because he did not get in front of Paul Menard, and he kind of got lucky off the start of the race in this situation, but this is one thing Mark Martin lacked during the Daytona 500, and that was the restart gear. Luckily, we only had 4 cautions. Took us about a third of the race before we had our first yellow today, but Johnson going to have to go 76 laps, and he can only pit once in that time. Now, he went 36 laps on the first run, so you're looking at about 72 laps a run, so he may be short to make it to the end still, but he's got 4 fresh tires back on the car. The bad news is, again, he does not have any drafting help whatsoever. Gonna have to somehow go 38 laps per run. Try to make it on fuel to the end of this race. And there were some cars that got up into the wall off turn 4. One car's down near the grass on the front stretch trying to get out of the way. It's Reed Sorensen in the 41. Biffle. Jimmy Johnson gets by him for position. Paul Menard in the 11. Johnson will get by him going into turn 1 for 39th. So Johnson has caught up to a couple cars at the tail end of the field here. I mean, now you wonder, though, what do you do if you're Jimmy Johnson? Do you... I mean, you can only save fuel so much on a super speedway. Obviously, you're going to have to be in the draft to be able to do it. Johnson still doesn't have anybody directly behind him. He is just really, really hoping he can keep up with Paul Menard, and I don't think he's going to be able to, unfortunately. And this 48 car, it's just not quick when he had nobody behind him. It's hard to slow those guys down enough so that way when he does fall behind him, he doesn't lose them. You know, I didn't look to see what the grade level was for Jimmy Johnson in the Xfinity Series. It might not be that good, considering his Xfinity stats. I'll have to check that after this race. I think that's still maybe Reed Sorensen on the bottom. No, it is not Reed Sorensen. Somebody else. I guess we'll go back to alternating through the camera angles. Bad news is it's going to be hard for Jimmy Johnson to try to save fuel like this. Cautions may not be over. He's going to have to try to run this out as long as he possibly can. Martin and Matt Kenseth have been leading for quite a while. It stinks to get that track position and give it back up, but we're definitely going to be able to go a lot longer on fuel than everybody else. So, I mean, pretty much what we're looking at, we should be able to get 5 bonus points at least for leading the lap. And I'm so bad on the restarts that even though I was in 7th, I had 2 old left side tires. And not having the restart gear in it here at Daytona, that I just don't know how that would have worked. May not have ended well because the car was definitely a lot more free than what it is now. Don't think there's really anything Johnson could do here to save fuel. He's going to probably be in need of another caution. I don't even know what I would do strategy-wise if we get another yellow, though. It's like, what else do I do? I'm going to have to get in front of cars so that way at least, you know, have a decent chance to get up to speed. Even if I fall behind a little bit at first, which is probably inevitable that that'll happen. There's no other cars a lap down because of the timing of the first yellow. The only cars Johnson's ahead of are the 4 drivers that have DNF'd in this race so far. And he is about 1 to 2 seconds off the pace of the leaders with no drafting help. Barely eclipsing over 180 miles an hour going into the corners. I mean, if we get a caution, I'm going to have to just go fuel only, I think. Take like a quarter tank of gas and just enough to top off, really. And if we get deep enough into the run, obviously it wouldn't be necessarily just to top off. Just enough to make it on one more stop after this. Have to short pit the last run, but... we'd have something. And because everybody else stayed out of the pits, I'm curious to see when exactly they're going to hit pit road. We're lap 54 right now. Not sure what the fuel conservation's like under caution in this game, but we did have a caution for a few caution laps. Another car slow on the apron. Johnson trying to catch a draft off the car, but that's not going to work. They're too far ahead yet. And they are all over the racetrack right now, too. They're riding the apron. They're riding just off the apron. I don't know what they're doing. I think it's Reed Sorensen still. So I guess there's only 3 cars that are actually out of the race. That will be interesting when the rest of the pack catches him. And we are 5 laps away. Next time by from the halfway mark. Kind of a topsy-turvy race. I mean, we could say we were as high as 7th. On speed, we were about 25th, which isn't great. But again, it's a super speedway. If we could just get track position and keep it, which we had track position, I chose not to keep it, unfortunately. I pitted and nobody else came in. I was honestly expecting more cars to come in because I thought we were going to be within the window to make it on one more stop after that. Looking back on it, I don't think we are going to have enough to be able to do that. I mean, again, we're going to have to go 76 laps. Which means we're probably going to have to end up... really stretching this run out as far as we can. We're going to have to somehow go 2 extra laps both on this run and the next run to be able to make it on fuel with just one more stop. I mean, it's not impossible in the sense that maybe we could have made it a few extra laps. It almost might not even matter if we can make it on one stop, though, with Johnson not having any drafting help because he is pretty far off the leaders right now. They're still going to have a little bit before they catch him, but Jimmy Johnson in dire need of a second caution here. I'll never know how that would have ended up working out on those older left side tires at the front of the field. We had a chance to find out. I was just scared I was going to wreck, honestly. Really trying to take care of the car. In order to get a good finish, we need to first finish the race. So it's kind of step number 1. And we've taken care of the car at least enough up to this point. Kenseth leading the way. Now, Roush Fenway Racing does have a couple trucks in the truck series in this game. They could try to sweep the weekend as an organization and try to win all 3 races. Definitely looked like the class of the field here. Now, the weird thing is Hendrick Motorsports ran very well in the Daytona 500. Jimmy Johnson, in fact, led a lot of laps. And, in fact, Jeff Gordon, who finished second, led the most laps by 1 lap over Mark Martin in that race, 63 to 62. And then Johnson was just behind. I think he led, what, 58, 59 laps? So, I mean, those three as a trio kind of dominated. But Johnson, Gordon led over half the Daytona 500 combined with each other. But then you fast forward to this Busch Series race, and they just don't seem to quite have the speed. And I'd say that Johnson probably has the least amount of speed of the three of them. And he's only about 10 seconds ahead of the rest of the field here. Officially halfway home at the start-finish line. I don't feel like I'm in a Hendrick Motorsports Chevy right now. I feel like I'm in a Rick Ware car before Rick Ware Racing was a thing. I think lap 33 was when we started to see green flag pit stops earlier. So I'd probably say in about the next 5 or 6 laps we'll see cars hit pit road again. Looking at 2 stops for everybody. Johnson maybe 1. And that would be the only saving grace, is if he can make this race on 1 stop versus the rest of the field. He could definitely get a caution in a weird spot that helps him. That first yellow was already in a weird spot as it was. It is not going to be enough. Still want to know how Martin Truex Jr. was on his side like that. From that only camera evidence of how he ended up sideways on the wall, for all I know, he could have done that on purpose. He just drove into the corner, tried to Chastain it, and he ended up on 2 wheels. Caution. That's big for Jimmy Johnson because he was probably in danger of going a lap down within about another 5 or 6 laps. Caution's out. Oh my gosh, somebody just stopped, and then Aaron Crocker gets blasted by her teammate Jeremy Mayfield from behind. The 180 parked it off of turn 4. Massive crash. The caution flag is out. And that is going to make things a little interesting here. Jimmy Johnson will stay out of the pits. Everybody else will hit pit road. Johnson will now be the leader. He was 5 or 6 laps away from going a lap down. Now he is the leader. 5 bonus points for him. Green flag back in the air at Daytona. Lap 67 as we're down to about 54 laps left. Well, now we get to see what he's going to be capable of. The problem is going to be at the very front of the field. He's hoping that this caution helps him save a little bit of gas. Trying to block for his life as they get up to speed because he knows he's not good getting through the restart gear, but he can hold on for long enough. Might be able to lead as they go into turns 3 and 4. He's going to get split 3 wide in the middle. A lot of cars behind Johnson, so he should be able to stay in the draft, you'd have to imagine. The only thing that could cost him is the old tires, but we'll see. He has gotten track position for the first time today. Now, he never led a green flag lap, but he still gets 5 bonus points for leading a lap. That's all that matters as far as that goes. Side by side for the lead, which is going to help Johnson kind of keep up with these guys, I think, at least. Kenseth, Martin, door-to-door. Tony Stewart, 33 car on the outside. Johnson's car is a little light, a little floaty. Caution again. That is not what Jimmy Johnson needed. because he is not good on the restarts. He was just keeping up with those top 4 cars, and it looks like we've got a debris caution. Jeremy Mayfield has lost the hood. So that's our 3rd yellow of the day. We had the big one off turn 4. Things have gotten a little interesting here today. Caution flag is out again. Johnson will stay out of the pits again. I mean, at least he's still in the top 5 for now, but I don't know how long he's going to be able to sustain this, unfortunately. We're down to 49 laps to go following the 3rd yellow. Trying to get up to speed as quick as he can. Slight bit of contact there with Tony Stewart in the 33. That stalls Johnson out a little quicker on this restart this time. Trying to slow these guys up as much as he can. Side drafting all over the place. Kyle Busch going up the middle 3 wide for about 4th. And the 2 Roush Fenway Fords at the front of the field are getting away. That would be Matt Kenseth and Mark Martin. Kyle Busch to the outside in the 5. He gets by. Tony Stewart also on the outside of Jimmy Johnson. He gets by. Johnson slides up right in front of Martin Truex Jr., who is still in this race after wrecking earlier. A lot of help behind Jimmy. 2-car breakaway, though. My goodness. Johnson with a run. Gets to the outside of Tony Stewart. Just cleared him going into turn 3 to get back down to the bottom, so he still got help from behind. And Kyle Busch in the 5, his teammate is right in front of him. Can the Hendrick duo of Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson work together to catch the Roush duo of Mark Martin and Matt Kenseth? Now, Johnson was about 4 laps short on fuel to be able to make it on 1 stop from when he pitted during the first caution of the day when nobody else did. We have had 2 cautions since, as we have seen. Does that mean that he is going to be able to make it on fuel to the end? Has he been able to save enough through the cautions? That's why he stayed out of the pits during both cautions, was so that way he could hopefully save enough gas there. Which he may be able to do. Who knows? Trying to keep the car as steady as possible, but it is very difficult on these older tires. Really trying to push. .3 to 1.4 seconds off the race lead right now. Lap 75. Jimmy Johnson's crew chief just alerted him that he is low on fuel. Got to push it as far as he can, though, if he's going to want to be able to make it. Man, what a race. The 60%. Oh, you're talking about on the right. That's my skill points. It used to be on the left side with the NASCAR 6 game. Johnson didn't get down to the bottom quick enough going into turn 3. Is Busch going to pull away from him? Tony Stewart's still right there on the back bumper of the 48. That's going to help him. Try to stay with Kyle Busch. He almost lost Kyle. He still might lose him. I don't know. This drafting is going to obviously help Johnson try to make it on fuel to the end of the race. Can he stay with Kyle Busch onto the back straightaway? Tony Stewart's a lot closer behind Jimmy Johnson now. And he is getting a run. He has not lost his teammate Kyle Busch yet. Barely holding on, again, with the old tires. And it looks like the top 2 are split apart from each other right now. Kenseth has really pulled away from Martin on this restart. Definitely showing that he's probably got the faster of the 2 Roush Fenway Fords at the front. Now, when Johnson gets close enough here to this second place car with Kyle Busch, has to make sure that he does not lose Kyle whatsoever. Kyle may cling on to Martin, and that is exactly what is happening right now. I was afraid of that. I thought about pulling out of line to make that pass, and I didn't, unfortunately. And Stewart going to try to make a move. Johnson with a block on Smoke. Stewart's still staying behind Johnson as Johnson remains 1.7 seconds off the lead. They're definitely losing time. Man, Kyle Busch he had too big of a run on the back of Mark Martin, and Jimmy Johnson couldn't keep up. Now Johnson goes wide off the exit of turn 2. Trying to hop in line behind Stewart, but he got a little loose off turn 2. He stayed in the gas, obviously, but no help behind Jimmy Johnson. I don't think he's going to be able to keep up with Stewart. Yeah, when the pack was bigger, he was able to keep up with these guys, but they got strung apart. He's having a harder time. I don't even know that Jimmy's going to be able to make it on the one stop. He's definitely going to push it as far as he possibly can, but I don't think those 2 cautions were enough. Going to the outside, off turn 2, he'll draft with Elliott Sadler in the 90. Johnson will stay out this time by. I don't know if there's a green-white checker in the Busch series in this game or not. I know in the Cup series there is. Trucks there probably is. See, I thought that with the NASCAR 06 game, but then we ended up having the races end under caution a lot, so... I mean, the only reason I say that is if we get a late yellow with like 5 or less laps to go, maybe there's a chance we can make it. Now, Kenny Wallace is close enough behind Jimmy Johnson. Johnson drafting behind the 57 here, Brian Vickers. Johnson really trying to push it on fuel. He's going to go one more lap after this. He is drafting behind the 57 of Brian Vickers. And he's keeping up with him somewhat with Kenny Wallace all over his back bumper. So this is what Johnson needed. It's another little push off turn 4. It's very risky, but... trying to go a whole another 2.5 miles. Really trying to stretch this fuel run out as far as he possibly can make it go. In the hopes that there is a way that he can make it on fuel to the end. Johnson trapped him behind Vickers. 39 to go at the line. I don't know if I want to go another lap. He's going to try it. Oh, man, I'm so scared. Johnson has to pit next time by. 39 laps to go. Really trying to push it on fuel. He's picking up time on these guys ahead of him, too. Drafting behind Vickers. Will Johnson's car be able to make it all the way back around yet another lap? He'll have 38 laps to go when he comes out of the pits. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a fuel mileage race at the Daytona International Speedway for Jimmy Johnson, who pitted during the first caution for his second stop of the day. This will be hopefully his final stop. He made it. He's not going to push it anymore. He doesn't think he can get that lucky. And he's going to really try to push it onto pit road. Can't speed. And he does not. Perfect pit road entry. It'll be fuel only and a full tank of gas. Wow. I don't know how many laps we technically went there because we had, I think, 6 caution laps. But I don't even know how Johnson made it that far on fuel. We were pushing it. We would have ran out. We would have had a poor finish. Now, we wait. Jimmy Johnson getting up to speed. Manual transmission uses less fuel. Is that accurate? In the video game side of it, at least. I don't know. Johnson was already on older tires. He was already on older tires, and he stayed out for fuel only that last time. Main reason is because he wanted to make sure he was still going to be on the lead lap. When Matt Kenseth catches him, he needs to block for his life and hope that when everybody else cycles off of pit road, he can get right back into the lead. Because it's still going to be a little bit before they pit. Johnson going to have to go 38 laps on a full tank of gas, but honestly, we might have been close to that, if not more than that, the last run. I definitely went more than that. I think in total we went 41 laps, but we had some caution laps in there that allowed us to go 41 laps. So now we have to go 38 green flag laps from start to finish. If we get any cautions in the middle of this run, honestly, if we get any yellows before everybody else pits, that should cycle Jimmy Johnson back to the race lead. Right front in the yellow in the tire wear indicator. I could see on like a road course or a track that you're shifting on with manual transmission how that could save fuel versus automatic, but when you're on a super speedway, I don't think it matters. I mean, you're on the gas 100% throttle the whole way, so I don't think it really makes a difference. Short shifting saves fuel. Yeah, but you don't shift on you're not gonna short shift on a super speedway like Daytona though, so yeah, that I could see like on a road course or a short track how that could help, but yeah, you can't do that on a super speedway. I mean, I'm sure it would save fuel, but you're gonna fall well off the pace too. Well, here's Kenseth. He has caught Jimmy Johnson. Johnson trying to crowd Kenseth, and he had no chance to stay in front of him there. Well, unfortunately, Johnson going to go a lap down. Mark Martin going towards the outside. Here comes Kyle Busch down towards the bottom. Kenseth pulling away. Ideally, if Johnson could try to draft with these two, he will. Pulls up in front of Kyle Busch. He was able to stay in the draft when he had somebody behind him and somebody in front of him earlier, but he's got some pretty old tires. We'll see if he can keep up with Mark Martin. I don't know that he's going to be able to, though. Well, Busch needed to stay behind the 5, and he did not. on that back straightaway. Staying behind him slightly, but Busch is losing the draft of Martin. Barely has anything. He's gonna have to block Busch. Caution. That is unfortunate for Jimmie Johnson because I don't know if he's going to get the free pass or not. That's why he wanted to stay on the lead lap, but he just couldn't hang on. Crash off of turn 2 towards the tail end of the field. Our 4th caution of the day. The 163 backs it into the wall and gets clipped by another car. Johnson's going to pit for 4 tires of fuel here. I would imagine everybody else is going to end up hitting pit road 2. Now, Jimmie Johnson gets the free pass. If there is a lucky dog in the Busch Series in this game, which we're about to find out if there is or isn't. He's definitely going to pit now. He can't gain any positions with this, unfortunately. He's going to have to just restart at the tail end of the field, so that's why he's going to take 4 tires while he's at it. So it'll be on equal tires at the end of the race, but he's going to have to go from the tail end of the field all the way to the front, which is probably not going to happen. Not everybody is hitting pit road either. Now, he doesn't have to put much fuel in the car here, so that's interesting, but definitely going to take 4 tires. Nothing to lose at this point. A lot of smoke from cars leaving the pits. Either that or we have like multiple guys blowing motors. Blowing their transmissions as they're getting up to speed onto the asphalt. Look at this.
While we were pitting, those guys up front stayed out.
163 is at the tail end of the field. He brought out the caution, so I believe that is why he is restarting behind Johnson. Elliott Sadler won the race off pit road. He'll get the restart as the leader. Green flag is back in the air. Johnson trying to get around Ron Hornaday, but he just can't do it. Oh, man, big contact. That's not good because now the 163 is going to be really, really slow down on the apron. Sean Fuller, thanks for tuning in. Only in the Busch Series for 2 years. This is true. But he never won a title. He only won 1 race. That was at Chicagoland. 2001. I believe it was 2001. Yeah, this is not good for Jimmie Johnson. He has lost all drafting help. He had the 163 behind him. He made contact with him, and now he's in trouble. You see, this is highly unfortunate because we could still get another caution. But Jimmie Johnson just has not taken off well on the restarts. But when he makes contact with another car, it gets even worse. Good news is we're back in the lead lap. We did get the free pass being the first car lap down. And the only car lap down. Bad news is we're still in 39th. Well, technically we're racing the 163, but he is he's very slow now. First time we've seen Elliott Sadler lead this whole race, though. 25 laps to go as he has cycled to the lead following those pit stops under caution. Trying to stay out in front of the field. Can he steal the win from the Roush Fenway Fords who have dominated the day? Primarily Matt Kenseth, but Mark Martin's led a lot of laps as well. And not a good start to this Busch Series season for Jimmy Johnson. Hate to say it, but we're running like Jimmy Johnson in the Busch Series. Should have known this was going to happen. I mean, this is the Daytona I'm used to. This is my luck at Daytona. But somehow, we won the Daytona 500. Of all NASCAR games to win it, it's the one I probably played the most growing up. So sure enough, that happens. But then we come right here, like 4 nights later in the Busch Series, and we suck. We did get 5 bonus points. I did lead laps because I stayed out of the pits earlier to get track position. And it worked because I was staying in the top 5 the whole time until I had to pit. And then we didn't have any drafting help and we fell a lap down. So, and it really stinks too because honestly we might have been able to make it on field to the end of the race. We just needed everything to cycle through. The problem is the caution came out. We got the free pass. If we would have had everything cycled through, I don't know that we would have cycled back in front of Mark Martin and Matt Kenseth, but as long as we stayed ahead of the third place car of Kyle Busch like we were doing, I mean, we probably could have cycled back up to third place. We get a late yellow from third, I have a chance. But, I mean, if I'm outside the top 4, forget it. Let alone 39th. I mean, like I said, the good news is we have equal tires. It's just tough. You need a car behind you and in front of you to stay in the draft. Cars in front of you, it's not enough. You have to have the push car from behind. It stinks we weren't able to lead a green flag lap today, but at least I got 5 bonus points. I mean, the strategy, I think, was working, especially because we had those 2 cautions in the middle of that middle fuel run. That when I did pit, I think we were going to make it 38 laps on fuel. Now, those tires have been really old because I went fuel only 2 stops in a row, but so who knows what the grip level is going to be like at the end of the race. I might have spun out and wrecked by then. I mean, it stinks, though. We kept the car clean, just hasn't been our race, unfortunately. We had 4 cautions in the Daytona 500. We've already had 4 in this Busch Series race today. Will we have a 5th? 4 seems to be the magic number at Daytona. Curious to see what tomorrow night's Truck Series race will be like. I will definitely qualify for the Truck Series race tomorrow. Definitely qualify for that one. Try to help ourselves out a little bit. See, the thing is, too, though, I don't know where I'll end up qualifying single car speed anyway, because single car speed in the Daytona 500 qualifying, I qualified 18th with Mark Martin. I didn't think I ran a bad lap. Like, I didn't bobble around too much, didn't really make any mistakes, just 18th on speed. But in the draft, I was quick, and I was able to keep up with the leaders, and we led the second most laps and won the race. Had a top 3 car. I mean, it was us, Johnson, and Gordon. And then Dale Jr. snuck in at the end, challenging for the win, but as far as who dominated the race, it was Johnson, Gordon, and Martin. 100 laps in, 20 laps to go. The Hershey Kissables 300 at the Daytona International Speedway. And unfortunately, Jimmy Johnson 20 seconds off the race lead. He is in 39th. Last car in the lead lap. There's not really going to be any way he can get track position. He was looking like fuel mileage was going to get him the best finish possible. Probably could have cycled back to third, but they didn't cycle all the way through pit stops, which trapped him a lap down. He was the first car lap down, so he got the free pass, but he had to restart the tail end of the field, and with how bad he has been on the restarts and getting up to speed, it was pretty bad, unfortunately. Two to 1 Japan over U.S. Yeah, hey Billy, I didn't even mention to you, but our Red Wings and Blues play each other tonight. St. Louis. I'll be watching that as soon as I get done with this. I think there's a chance that Jimmy Johnson goes a lap down before the end of this race, so we may see the finish with the leaders. We're going to try to help one of our Hendrick Motorsport teammates win this race. If they do catch up, obviously. Now, Elliott Sadler's pulling away with it, it appears, right now. Which, again, this is the first he has led the whole race, so I guess we're kind of getting to see what his car's like in the clean air. How fast he is leading the pack. And he seems to be fast. He's the cover star of this game. We're looking to get a Busch Series win. Who is that number 90 team, by the way, anyway? I don't think that's Robert Yates Racing. I mean, maybe it is, but I don't think it is. I don't know what race team that is. He ran that same car in the NASCAR 6 game, too, in the Busch Series. Yeah, I mean, we could get a caution. Like I said, we've had 4 of them. We've already had the big one. We've had 2 cars catch air, and one of them was on his side. Aaron Crocker got absolutely blasted by Jeremy Mayfield after the 180 was slow off turn 4. There's nowhere for cars to go that were double wide behind him. Kind of got pinched right in between the 9 and the 180. Oh, it is Robert Yates Racing. Yeah, I didn't realize that, honestly. I wouldn't have thought that. Yeah, so if the leaders catch Jimmy Johnson, then he's going to fight to stay on the lead lap, because if it is like the other NASCAR games, we can't get the free pass in the final 10 laps if we get a caution. So we will have to fight to stay on the lead lap anyway. But will there be a chance for any of the Hendrick Motorsport teammates to catch up to Elliott Sadler, try to win this race? So the best thing for Sadler, he's hoping he doesn't catch any lap traffic. Now he is closing in on one car. 15 laps to go into the tri-oval this time for the 90. Elliott Sadler or Stephen Light? It is Elliott Sadler in this game. That I know for a fact. Stephen Light's not in this game. Remember when Stephen Light won the NASCAR Cup Series Rookie of the Year? Anybody remember that? A lot of people probably don't even realize he was a Cup Series Rookie of the Year. It was like one of those years where there was like no rookies in the early 2010s. Brett Moffitt won it one year too, one of those same years. Well, obviously it wasn't the same year as Stephen Light, but then a couple years apart from each other. '12, yep. Moffitt was, what, 13? Or was it 15? It might have been. I don't think Moffitt was around that long ago. I think Moffitt was 15. Won a Cup Series Rookie of the Year before, well before he won the Truck Series Championship. Yeah, over to Benedetto. Blues have a home-and-home against the Red Wings. Yeah, they haven't even played each other yet this year. Red Wings have had that a couple times this year. They had that with Ottawa earlier this year. Boston just like a week or it was like 2 weeks ago with Boston. And now with St. Louis. They didn't really play both of them against Ottawa because that's when we had that blizzard right around Christmas. Around where I live. I only live like an hour, 15 minutes south of Detroit. So they that game got moved. Because they played in Ottawa, but then they were supposed to play the next game in Detroit like 2 nights later. And I guess they couldn't even travel back. They were pretty much stuck in Canada for a couple days. So they just completely postponed that game. They ended up making that up like a couple weeks ago. And Detroit lost, if I remember correctly. Lost the makeup game. Yeah, Kyle Busch, I keep saying Kyle Busch. The reason why I'm doing that, because it's the Busch series. I'm used to NASCAR 6. We were literally in the same paint scheme. It was a Lowe's paint scheme. And Kyle Busch has a Lowe's paint scheme in this Busch series, too. We have 2 Lowe's cars on the track at the same time. Like 2022 with a lot of different cars. It seems like nowadays have that. It'll be 10 laps to go at the start-finish line. Elliott Sadler's led every lap since the restart. Now, I don't think even if he leads all the way to the end of the race consecutively that he will lead the most laps. I think Matt Kenseth will still have clinched the most laps led. I don't know if the Cup Series regulars are going to run the full season or not. They typically run all the tracks that aren't fantasy tracks and aren't standalone events. But there's only a couple on this custom schedule season that there are standalone Xfinity races. I raced at IRP once, Milwaukee once, and Dodge Raceway, and I think that's it. The other racetracks are all tracks that are actually on the schedule, so they could run 27 of the 30 races, and honestly, considering the Cup regulars, if they dominate enough, I could see a championship won by one of them, even if they missed 3 races. Now, Kyle Busch and Brian Vickers, they'll probably run the full season because Jimmy Johnson is, so we can guarantee that those 3 will run the full season. So, honestly, that's probably going to be our main competitors for the championship. Halfway out of gas this point in the run, but again, everybody is plenty good on fuel to make it to the end after that last caution. We're down to 9 laps to go in the Hershey-Kissables 300. Blues currently leading the Red Wings 2-1. Okay, so I did have a parlay, and I actually had the Blues winning, and I had both teams scoring at least 1 goal. So, there you go. As much as I want the Red Wings to win, I would also like to win $350, so that's the consolation prize if the Red Wings lose tonight. But I'd also need Boston to win, and then them and Ottawa both have to score at least 1 goal also. And then there has to be 8 or less goals in the Rangers-Canes game, and then what else was there? Was another leg, and then at least, or I should say over 4.5 goals, so 5 or more goals in the Blue Jackets and Caps game. I'm hoping. Bought myself a cowboy hat in Texas this weekend. I don't know how expensive they are, but I would imagine I'm well worth probably looking at those hats. I have no clue what the hat prices are going to be, but I'd have to imagine that they're going to be like $100. I'm already guaranteeing that. So this would go a long way, honestly, if I won this tonight. This would go a long way. Consider I didn't win as much money as I would have liked during March Madness this weekend. I still have that next week to do it. Problem is, though, I have to play some bets before I leave because it's not legal in Texas. And FanDuel kind of restricts you and locks you out when you're out of state. Even though I'm from the state of Ohio, it's weird. Even though I live here, my mailing address is in Ohio, it still doesn't allow me to do it while I'm in Texas. I mean, I could see if it didn't allow me to cash out when it was in Texas, but I don't know, it's weird. It literally just restricts you from submitting anything. 6 laps to go for Elliott Sadler. He and it looks like one other car have drafted away from the pack, so it is a 2-horse race for the win. I'm not sure who that other car is. Johnson's going to try to hang on to the lead lap to the end of this race. Actually, it looks like there's 2 cars with Sadler, so it's a 3-car breakaway. One of them is the Roush Fenway Fords of either Mark Martin or Matt Kenseth. You have to think it's probably Matt Kenseth, but Martin was up there too. We really have no clue exactly how they cycled after green flag pit stops as well, so no clue. And it looks like Kyle Busch is in 3rd, so this is the moment of truth right here. Everybody on equal tires. This is going to be tough for them to try to get by Jimmy Johnson. 5 laps to go in this race for Elliott Sadler to try to win. And we got a couple of Hendrick Motorsports Chevys that are going to be working together. Big block to the outside, then back to the bottom going into turn 1 for Johnson. Sadler still up there on the outside. Kyle Busch going down to the bottom with the 90 and the 48. Kenseth. And that's actually Mark Martin, rather, not Matt Kenseth. So Mark Martin in the 6 has just taken the lead away. Not sure where the 17 of Matt Kenseth even is. But Martin leads this race. 4 to go at the line this time by. Kyle Busch going to draft behind Johnson to get to 2nd as he clears Elliott Sadler into the trioval. Johnson is a lap down, but going into turn 1, he's going to try to get his lap back on the 6 of Martin. Side by side, into the corner. The side drafting is going to hold the 6 up a little bit. Kyle Busch, again, closing the gap, but he's not going to be able to get there. Johnson lifting a little bit. He's going to try to let Kyle Busch in line. And now he'll draft behind him. Hopefully he didn't lift too much. He does have Elliott Sadler behind him, which will help him give it a push. Can Kyle Busch run down Mark Martin? And now Sadler gets to the outside of the 48 as well. Johnson he does not have a strong car today. I'm trying to stay with Sadler. And the 90, it does look like Busch has closed the gap on Martin. Goes to the inside. So we're down to 3 laps to go. And they're side by side for the lead in turns 1 and 2. Kyle Busch did catch Mark Martin. And they're door to door on the back straightaway. And this is going to allow Elliott Sadler and the 90 car to try to close it in. And maybe he's got a shot still. Busch to the lead off of turn 4. Johnson not up there to keep helping him, though. But he might be able to hang on now. 2 laps to go for Kyle Busch. Johnson still hanging on to the draft of Elliott Sadler in the 90. No help behind Johnson. He loses him in the corner just to catch him again on the straightaways. Mark Martin is very close to Kyle Busch right now on the backstretch. He's getting a lot of help from Elliott Sadler also as they go into turns 3 and 4. Busch had a nice block in the middle of the corner. They'll be coming to the white flag this time. Can Kyle Busch hold on to win it? Or will it be Mark Martin and Elliott Sadler? It's a 3-car race for the win. 3-car race for the win, and it is the bell lap. Down to the bottom goes Johnson. Trying to side draft Elliott Sadler a little bit. That's going to allow him to not give Mark Martin as big of a push. Hopefully Kyle didn't get too far ahead of the 6, though, on the back straightaway. Big run for Jimmy Johnson going into turns 3 and 4 as he gets back to the inside of the 90 again. Busch is out ahead by about 2 to 3 car lengths. Martin closes off of turn 4 in the draft. Johnson cleared Sadler. Martin closing in the trioval, but he's not going to get there. And Kyle Busch will win the season opener for Hendrick Motorsports. As a team, they got the win today, but Jimmy Johnson struggled with a 38th place finish. But Kyle Busch will keep Mark Martin from sweeping the weekend as Martin finishes second after winning the Daytona 500 on Friday. Congratulations, you have received the All-State Good Hands Driver Award of the race. You need 2 more of these to unlock the next All-State item. I don't know what this means. How did I get the All-State Good Hands Driver? Was it because I finished a lap down and didn't wreck? I don't understand. How did I get that? Is that the participation award for finishing 38th 1 lap down? I guess. I didn't tear the car up, I'll give it that. I ran a clean race, unfortunately lost the draft a couple times. I got bailed out with the caution once, maybe twice, but not the 3rd time. Busch with the win, led just 4 laps today, but stole it at the very end. 4 cautions for 24 lead changes. It doesn't show exactly how many caution laps in this game like it did NASCAR 06, but yeah, 24 lead changes, 147.79 miles per hour is the average race speed. 10th of a second margin of victory. 2 hours, 1 minute, 47 seconds was the total time on tonight's race. Again, Busch with the win. Mark Martin led 33 laps, finishes in second. That was not the most. I figured Kenseth led the most. Elliott Sadler led 22 laps, finished third. He led on that restart after winning the race off pit road, but lost the lead there with about 5 to go. J.J. Yaley finished 4th. Matt Kenseth, who did lead the most laps, led 44. He finishes in 5th after starting 26 today. He just lost the draft of the top 3. Top 3 pulled away on that last restart. And Kenseth was probably stuck behind Yaley the whole time. Could never catch him. Martin Truex Jr. was on his side at one point today. Still finished the race and got a top 10 and led laps. He led before that crash, though. Never got back to the lead after it. He wrecked while he was like 4th, I think, at the time. Truex ended up, though, with a 6th place finish. Aaron Crocker was airborne today, too. Both the cars that ended up airborne finished in the top 10, 6th and 7th. Well, meanwhile, I lost the draft at the tail end of the field multiple times without wrecking. I was fast when I was in the pack. I wasn't the fastest car. We were mid-pack, honestly. The speed we had in the car today, 20th at best. We probably had a top 20 car. We were mid-pack today on speed. But I was at least capable of running there. I just didn't have anybody behind me. And I was able to keep up with the leaders. I mean, even when I had older tires, when I restarted in the lead, I stayed right behind the top 4 the whole time like I did right at the end of this race. That was about how I was on old tires earlier in the day as well. So I was able to keep up with them. I just couldn't really, pass or stay in front of them. Whether it was on old tires or even on the fresher tires there at the end either. Held on for like a lap, and that was it. The rest of the top 10, Tony Stewart finished 8th, no laps led. Dale Jr. 9th, no laps led. Brian Vickers led 1 lap today, finished in 10th. So all 3 Hendrick cars led at least 1 lap. I want to see exactly how many Johnson led. A lot of them were during the caution. Actually, all of them. I didn't lead a green flag lap. I led 2 laps during caution because I stayed out of the pits. Finished 1 lap down. Started last. No practice or qualifying. I will practice and qualify for the Truck Series race tomorrow. I should get home in time for it. Be sure to hit the like button on tonight's stream. Subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. I will see you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard start time once again. And we'll be Truck Series racing on NASCAR 07. And let me check the community tab real quick to see who I will be racing as. You guys got to vote. I believe it's Todd Bodine, but I want to check just to make sure. And yeah, easily. Todd Bodine wins the vote. 115 votes casted. 63% said Todd Bodine. Next closest was David Reagan with 22%. Aaron Crocker had 10%. Scott Legacy Jr. ended up with 5% of the votes. So I'll be racing as the youngin' Todd Bodine in the season. Honestly, he was my favorite Truck Series driver growing up when I first started watching the Truck Series around this time period. So I'm actually kind of glad you guys voted for him. That's pretty cool. So get the run as Todd Bodine then. Thanks, everybody. See you guys tomorrow night, and we'll see if we can win the season opener on the truck side. I've never won a truck race at Daytona on a DA Sports game. Took us forever to win at Daytona in the Cup Series, 15 races. Took 7 tries to win the Daytona 500. It's time to try to win a truck race on a NASCAR EA Sports game. We're 0 for, I got to think here for a second, 0 for 6 so far. So we'll try it again, our 7th attempt, and we'll see if lucky number 7, once again, will be the lucky charm on NASCAR 07. Have a good night, everybody.